not working. Please do not mute me, the chair of council. Council documents can be found in the files section of the Teams group. We are streaming live on a social media channel, probably Facebook or YouTube, and this will be recorded, so please ensure that you use appropriate language and do not swear, which I think is primarily targeted at me. That's all, I think. And then we've got apologies as well to go through, which I'm just getting up now. And then we can move on to okay, we might just make apologies available afterwards because I can't find the apologies list in what is already going very smoothly. Okay, so what we'll do is for now we'll move on to approval of the minutes from the last meeting of council. Has anyone got any questions? Okay, Ellie's got them. Has anyone got any questions about the last minutes of council? Okay, we might just make apologies available. No one? Okay, then we can move to a vote on the last minutes of council. Ellie, as always, will gallantly post a link in the chat as she has. Andre, you've got a question. Andre? Okay, we'll just have to wait for David to... Oh, there we are. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm just looking through it. Shouldn't there be also the minutes from the emergency council, or will that be at the next one? You know, the one that we had with the councils.
The additional meeting. That will be in the next student council's meeting. Yeah. Any more questions on this? Nope. Okay, so the link's been posted in the chat. So you can go vote there. Link is in the chat, and we're voting to approve the minutes of the last meeting of student council from February. Just waiting on the results of that one. Just waiting for some clarification before we can put up the results of that vote. Just make sure everyone has definitely voted. There we are. Perfect. Yeah, I'm guessing that okay, Tobias. His hand's gone down.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
Mine says that I do not have permission to view this, but I wasn't signed into my university account when it first went live. I don't know if that has done that.
Yeah, you've got to be logged into your university email account for it to work. But there we go. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Just still waiting on. Okay. Yeah, no, I can see it. I was just waiting to see because you both messaged it. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm replying to you through this. I'm just going to go with it, and you can tell me off later. Okay, so that's 34 votes for, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. So by my maths, the approval of the minutes passes. Thank you, Ellie. Sorry for that. And then, okay, so policy updates. I don't think we have any policy updates, nor student partnership agreement updates, nor any committee and fora updates. If anyone wishes to make an oral update, they can do. If not, we can just move on. But I see Andre's got his hand up. So, Andre.
So at the past two councils, we had motions around no detriment. So they have thankfully both have been finished. So we now have a comprehensive measures for assessment. So I'm quite happy with that. So thank you to everyone at council who voted for it and to all people who engaged with the process. So hopefully they will be finished for now.
Good. It's a good update. And anyone else want to make a oral update, whether they be a SAB, a committee, or a fora? If not, we can just move on. There we go. Okay, and then we're going to do right. So we're moving on to motions now. Now, as you'll notice, we have three emotions with many emotions, but only 3 motions. And one of the proposers of motion B, who coincidentally is called B, yes, perfect. 6.8.3F is what we need to vote on. So just to hold on, let me just check this. Yes, okay. So for the access hours motion, which is 8B on the agenda, the proposer wants to move it essentially up the agenda so that we can get hers over and done with, because I believe she's got another meeting to go to. So we would need to have a vote on moving the item, her motion, up the agenda slightly so she can propose it straight away. That comes under 6.8.3F of the bylaws. Does anyone have any questions on this? We're going to vote to move an item up the agenda for the ease of the proposer. No questions? Or can we go straight to a vote on that? Yes, we can. Okay, so the vote has been put in the chat. You can find the link to vote there. So just a reminder, you're voting to move an item up the agenda, the access hours motion, that's item 8B, up the agenda, just for the ease of the proposer. Okay. So with 36 votes for, two against, and 4 abstentions, that procedural motion passes. Because it gets a simple majority, it needs to get moved up. So we alter the agenda to move item 8B to now, and therefore we can go to its proposer if you're there. I hope. Yeah, perfect. Beatrix.
Right, okay, can everyone hear and can everyone see?
Yeah, perfect, thanks.
Cool, okay. So as the Vice Chair of the Welfare Committee and the convener of the Disabled Students Forum, although my role in the Disabled Students Forum doesn't technically have any power in council, I have decided to propose basically a motion to begin the implementation of the access hours policy, which would basically mean that AUSA starts to create a policy by which the Union Brew space is made more accessible to disabled students. So that might include stuff like dimming lights at specific times, having no music at specific times, but the main, like what that policy specifically means for people would be worked on with the Disabled Students Forum and the Welfare Committee, and I definitely believe that the access hours policy would benefit everyone who wants space that can be used by everybody, and it wouldn't serve to decrease the benefits of Union Brew for anyone.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Beatrix on this motion? Nope. Just a reminder, if everyone could make sure their cameras are turned off unless you are speaking. Thank you. There we go. Anyone have any questions on that motion or wish to speak against the motion? We may have an issue here because Ellie's internet's gone down, so we might have to wait for the vote to come up on the screen. Oh, no, she's back. No, she's back. This is good. So if there's no one that wishes to vote to speak against the motion, we can move to a vote. If anyone wishes to object to that, no. Nice one. Okay, so the form to vote on the access hours motion. So this is item 8B on the agenda, the access hours motion you're voting on. It needs a simple majority to pass. Yeah. This is a proposal for AUSA policy. That was new. I muted myself then, so that's a different way to do things. So the access hour motion, that has 35 votes for, 2 against, and 3 abstentions. So 35 votes for, 4 against, and 3 abstentions. So the motion for access hours has passed. And then we can move on to the graduation motion, which is item 8A on the agenda, as we voted to shift around the agenda in a procedural motion earlier. So 8A, the graduation motion. I believe that's Daniel. Am I correct? It is. And outside, Daniel, on location. Okay. Over
Hello.
to you,
Yeah. I'll keep this really short because I'm a bit outside at the moment. But basically, this is just a policy that will make it so that AUSA keeps a focus on the university to make sure that students who graduated in the 2020 year or any graduations thereafter will be guaranteed an actual graduation in person at some point from the university. I know that is currently sort of the policy of the university, but that just basically keeps the focus on that. So there is something standing for people to focus on. So yeah, thanks guys.
Brilliant. Nice to see Daniel gets out of the house once in a while. Does anyone have any questions on that motion or any speeches against? Nope. Okay. That means we can move to a vote on the graduation motion as proposed by Daniel. That voting link is in the chat. If you've got any issues with that, let us know. Click on the link in the chat and we're voting on the graduation motion as proposed by Daniel. It just needs a simple majority to pass. Brilliant. So thank you, Ellie. The results for the graduation motion is 41 votes for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. 42 votes for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Okay, then we move on to our third motion in Student Council today. It's the content warning motion. That's item 8C on your agenda, 8C. Now, Ivana is unable to be here. She did send me a video, but I was informed that we're unable to show that video in effect, or instead of, sorry, her 2-minute opening speech on the motion. So is one of the seconders able to give a speech or a brief statement on the motion? If any of the seconders want to put their hand up. Yeah, Beatrix.
Hello, it's me again. Right. So the purpose of this motion was to make sure that in the event of any potentially triggering or sensitive content, AUSA basically would be mandated to precede that content with a note or with a warning about what it was about. And this has been used by AUSA countless times before. So it was used on the page about the Emily Drouet Award. It was used even on the SAB election pages, where they had notes about how some of the manifestos had notes in them that related to related to sexual violence, for example, and the implementation of this policy would also mean that students would be notified about similar content in their uni courses, for example, if their courses went into detail about something like that. And I, as a seconder of this motion, believe that if we did implement this policy, that it would just serve to notify people about things they might otherwise be disturbed by if they didn't know they'd be encountering it in their work otherwise.
Brilliant, thank you, Beatrix. Does anyone have any questions or wishes to speak against this motion? Yeah, Camilo? Camilo, are you there? Are we?
Yeah.
We just get. Yeah,
Can you
perfect.
hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
No, I just wanted to know more about how will we decide how it will be decided which kind of content will be part of that. Like, what will be the process will be involved, because it's not always easy to know which content could cause distress. Thank you.
Just before we answer there, just a reminder that it's a naming committee as well, Camilo. Not to pick you out completely. I mean, I know other people's.
Sorry. I'm part of the BAME forum. I'm here as part of the BAME forum.
Apparently, you
Camilo.
also meant to say VP communities elect as well. I've been
Okay. VP communities elected. Yeah, sounds good. Cheers.
Yeah. Right. So, does Beatrix, are you able to respond to that point, or anyone else from the seconders? Andre, is that you responding to Camilo's question, or have you got another?
Yes, so I cannot say how it will be done AUSA part, but there is committees that are looking at that kind of thing at the university side of things. So it's a ongoing conversation, and it will very much depend on the feedback we get from students and what potentially somebody might find distressing in the past and all those sorts of things. So I would imagine similarly it would happen in AUSA, but the purpose of this policy is not, how are we going to do it, but its purpose is that there is a need for that to happen both across university and AUSA.
Okay, thanks, Andre. Any other questions about this motion? Nope. Okay. Everyone's happy then. We can move to a vote. So we're voting on the content warning motion as outlined in 8C on your agenda and in the papers. The link to vote is in the chat as always. And yeah. Just another reminder, just to keep your cameras off if you're not speaking as well. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, that's the results up. So the content morning motion has 29 votes for, 10 against, and 4 abstentions. So that means that motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Then we move on to bylaw amendments. Remember, bylaws are the fundamental rules and regulations by which AUSA operates. Today we have two proposals to change the bylaws. These proposals require a 75% majority, so 75% of votes, excluding abstentions, to pass. Now, 2 seconds. Let me just go to the other notes that because I can't remember which way around this is. Okay, we're fine. So we'll go first to bylaw 9 amendment, and I think the proposer is Cecilia. I think.
Yeah, if it's the student group bylaw, then it's me.
That's the one. Yeah, it sounds familiar. On you go.
Delia, student president. So hopefully everyone's read the paper, which includes a explanation of what exactly is happening with this bylaw amendment. And the straightforward thing is just at the moment, AUSA cannot step in and support student groups, and the purpose of this bylaw amendment is to make sure that they can, if it's absolutely necessary and it's their choice to do so, by just adding some clauses to it so that, for example, having to publicly declare both by the student group that they decide to step in to help, but also publicly declaring, as they already do in their annual accounts, that they, for example, have stepped in to give funds to Nightline or bookends or etc. And it's not, in practice, not really much is changing. It's just a matter of being able to do something so that none of our student groups do end up collapsing, especially because our student group numbers are increasing. So we're having to look at how we actually provide support for these groups. I'm not sure anyone's got any questions. I feel like my bylaw and the text accompanying it was pretty straightforward.
Any questions?
This isn't a question about the bylaw, but I can't seem to find any of the agenda or things for the council meeting.
Yeah, so they should have been emailed to you. If not, I believe they're available on the Teams group for this meeting. If you still want them, either myself or someone could forward that. I mean, I'll just do it. We can forward that to you right now.
And I couldn't seem to find it, so if someone can send it to me, I'll be eternally grateful.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
All right, cheers, Matthew.
No problem. Okay. Any questions about this bylaw amendment? No. Any questions at all? Any speeches against? Nope. Okay. That means we can move to a vote. Remember, this vote needs 75% majority to pass, so that's 75% of the votes. That's excluding abstentions. The voting link is in the chat. Thank you, Ellie. And you can vote there now. Okay, so I believe now we will need to get the calculators out just to double check. And from prior experience, that's not the best way to do things. But we'll just make sure everyone has a chance to vote. Okay, so with 34, 4 abstentions, 4 against and 6 abstentions, so 34, 4 against and 6 abstentions, that bylaw amendment passes. There we go. Perfect. Then we move on to a speed round of Student Council today. We move on to bylaw 3. Now, I've been asked to clarify before we go to Andre, who's proposing this motion. Hold on a minute. Let me get up the notes. Bylaw 3 amendment is only allowed on this occasion as it came from AGM. We can pass the bylaw, but constitution changes are the decision of the trustee board, and the proposer must approach the board for that side of the motion separately. Council itself does not have the power to make constitution changes, but we can pass the bylaw amendment side of it. I'm sure you understand that, Andre. I can probably explain it in better detail anyway, but I'll pass over to you.
So thank you. So for those who have been to the AGM would know what this is about. So this motion is rewriting the bylaw 3 as it is to introduce a student council that is open to all students who are members of AUSA. This would mean that anybody can propose motion, change bylaws, and vote at student council meetings. So it would be more accessible to everyone and make sure that AUSA is more reflective of the entire student body. On top of that, it streamlines some of the processes and makes everything as easy as it can be. And there will be additional training to the chair and to the sabbaticals, because some of the processes have been moved to their remit for ease, as probably not every student who would come to a council would be 100% trained on all of the processes behind it. So it would make it much smoother, and hopefully it would get on quicker, and it would leave us with more time for the accountability sessions and for hearing the motions and bylaw changes. It also seeks changes to the voting and how that works. So there will be essentially 3 possible outcomes. So if there is a motion and less than a third of present councillors would vote in favor of that, it basically does not pass. If over 2/3 of people would vote in favor of it, then it would pass. And if anywhere in between, it would be triggered sort of a campus-wide ballot, which would need essentially any number of votes that would be higher than the original vote taken at student council. So that is majority of the changes that I'm looking for. It also removes bylaw 18 because it sort of absorbed it into the policy. So it's called Student Council and Student Policy Bylaw. As Matthew mentioned, the part that we're going to be voting on is just the bylaw itself. So if it was taken at the AGM, we would be voting on both that and the constitutional change together, but council does not have the authority to make constitutional changes. So we're only voting on the bylaw amendment. And if there was a conflict of interest in the implementation period, then constitution would take precedence. That means that until constitution would be changed, bylaws would still require 75% majority instead of 2/3. So hope I mentioned everything, and if there's any questions, I'll take them now.
Yeah, any questions on the bylaw amendment? Raise your hand. Nope. Anyone want to speak against this motion? Or bylaw amendment? Apologies.
I would just mention that this is very similar to some of the other student unions that have open councils, and it's implemented in institutions such as Edinburgh. So it's proven to work at other places, so hopefully it would work here too.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Anthony?
Yeah, just looking at it, is this not essentially just making every student council into an AGM with the risk of not getting quorum then, because people aren't obliged to turn up?
No, because we wouldn't really do the AGM part, so the new student council still wouldn't have the authority to change the constitution, so it wouldn't be quite the same, and the purpose of student council is to hold the sabbaticals to an account, so it would still be doing that while also letting everyone participate in that process. So it's slightly different to an AGM, because AGM has the purposes of holding the trustees to the account, and it can also pass constitutional change.
Okay, and then we go to Harnham.
Harnham Sports Committee. My question is, wouldn't this just make what would be the point of being a student councillor then? Because I mean, I could just turn up as, I don't know, I can just, like, you know, not stand as a councillor, not do what my role entails, and then just turn up to council and then submit things and all that. So my question is really is, what would be the point of having a student council if anyone can just turn up?
So we currently technically don't elect student councillors, we elect standing committees. So the standing committees have their own purpose, and we also have forums who elect their own representatives, and student groups who also elect internally their representatives to student council. So all of those positions have their purpose outside of student council. They only happen to be on student council. So those are two separate things, and we would still hope that those committees can also inform the debates that we would be having, and they will still be likely the main drive to some policy changes, such as, you know, if there is an environmental debate, then we would hope that the Environment and Ethics Committee, for example, would come up with a policy that would be relevant to that. So they would still have a purpose. And if you read bylaw 5, then most of the committee's work is related to campaigning, which is currently not done because of how council currently overshadows most of their other work. So I wouldn't be worried about that part, because there's a lot for those people to do and how we can engage them.
Okay, then, I mean, I'm not sure what order these came in because they don't show up on my screen in order, but we're going to go to Camilo.
Hi everyone, this is Camilo from BAME Forum. My question is, if in those other cases where this change has been implemented, have you seen a positive impact on participation or in turnout? Because I would like to know if this will also help in that.
In majority of the cases that I found, yes, it's a process. So the longer they have it, clearly, the more embedded it becomes, and then the more engagement they have. So it's not, generally speaking, a sudden jump from like 50 counselors to 500 students, but it's sort of a progressive step towards that.
Okay, thanks. And then to Daniel.
Hello. Yeah, again, keeping it brief. Because this opens the council up to so many different people in different groups, doesn't this basically run the risk of having people turn up who don't really know a lot about the procedures or councils, just turning up in groups and implementing policy just willy-nilly, and then that possibly being revoked to the next council, and then that just carrying on?
Andre?
I wouldn't think so. We have student councillors that also usually come with little to no experience, and it doesn't really happen. So there is no reason for us to expect that from the unions that have had it. They've had some bizarre motions every now and then who then gathered really big turnout, such as, I don't know, sleeping pods on campus or something like that. That is a bit ridiculous. But overall, there are not really cases where this would be an issue in other institutions.
Okay, thanks. And then I think, hold on, Harmon's already out. We'll come back to Harmon in a second. I'm just trying to get the list of, because it's all disappeared. Robbie? Oh, here's the list. Robbie here.
Yeah, I've got two questions. Firstly, as we all know, council seems to drag on from time to time, and that's only with a limited number of councils. I know you've partially addressed this question previously, but my worry is that if we do pass this bylaw, every council meeting is going to drag on and on and on. What measures can you put in place to stop that?
So I've put a lot of precautions to that. So for example, things such as the work report of committees and the minutes of committee meetings, they will all be routinely approved. So there is not going to be a voting as we do now, but it would essentially be included in a document. It would be there for noting. And if somebody wants to ask questions, they can. And if they want to call for a vote to approve it, they can. But if they don't, we're not going to be going through that process. It will be just noted and we can move on. And it will be similar with some other things. In terms of, points of order and other procedural motions, now you need to have a seconder, then you need to have a vote, and somebody needs to set up a vote. All of these things would be handled by the chair, so there wouldn't be any need for any of those kind of processes. And similarly, there's a change to voting, so all voting would be essentially done using the same percentages, so that there would be no confusion over what majority needs to be there for any particular vote. So I've tried to simplify it so that it would be really, really smooth, so that we wouldn't have the obstacles in place that we do have now, and we wouldn't need to essentially wait as long as we did it, for example, the AGM to start with it. If somebody turns up late, then they can turn up late and join the discussion when they join it. So we wouldn't have any of those kind of constraints, so that, in my view, it would be much smoother process, in fact, than currently a council is. So there's ways that we can ensure it, and I hope I've addressed most of those within that bylaw proposal.
Could I ask one follow-up question?
Yeah, of course.
Right, Chair?
Yeah.
Just in terms of the practicalities of having potentially a decent proportion of the student body in attendance, would there be any way to, or is there any plan to limit the time for debates on motions to make sure that debates and motions wouldn't go on for too long?
So you have the procedural motion as you do now, and if somebody calls it, then it can be moved to a vote at the discretion of the chair. So if the chair had enough of the discussion, they can move it to a vote. But there is that limitation to it that I took from our current policies, that 4 rounds of the debate would need to be held if there is more interest in the debate before moving to a vote, if needed be. So I didn't set a maximum, but I set a minimum if there is an interest. But clearly, if there is no interest, vote can be taken right away. So I wouldn't imagine the discussions taking much longer than they do at the moment, especially not for foreseeable future.
Thank you, Andre.
And also, just to note, this bylaw, if we figure out in the implementation part that this one particular thing is not really working, the student council will have the power to change it. So if there is ever so slight things that are problematic with it that we don't see right now, we have a really easy process to do that from one council to another. So if on the first council we see this is not working, we need to change it, we can do that quite quickly.
Okay, Braden? Your mic's on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, going by the turnout of the last election, just there was so poor, and that people that are on council now are most likely the people that are quite keen to be involved. It's not really just create more work, and like he's mentioned in the training, to not just really create more work with little rewards, really.
No, so this is actually to address some of those concerns because students wanted to be engaged and they currently need to go quite through onerous processes to get engaged in this way, and then it comes with all sorts of responsibilities that they do not want to have in many cases to be still engaging with the system. So this actually would remove most of those barriers and let them engage in a way that they would want to engage with us. So yeah.
Okay, and Harnham, unless Braden, your hand's still up, so I don't know if you want to. Was that okay? Perfect. Harnham.
So following on from what some other people have said, you mentioned, Andre, that this is being used at the University of Edinburgh Student Association, and going from the past of AUSA elections, that student turnout is quite low, and you just mentioned that students are actually quite keen to get more involved in sort of AUSA and things, but wouldn't sort of the fact that we lost quorum, and if councillors were here a few years ago where we had to have, I think, 3 or 4 different AGMs to complete everything, wouldn't that prove otherwise? So I kind of think, what would you do to combat that issue of because I think you said something, and I kind of think how can you counteract it despite the fact that there's proof,
So, as I said, this is one of the solutions to students feeling like AUSA can represent them, so that if they really have any issue whatsoever, they can come to council and they can raise it and they can have a discussion about it. Currently, they need to be asking council permission to come, then they need to ask permission to speak. And it's a little bit condescending to those who come to such a setting. So this will remove all of those barriers and make sure that they're encouraged to engage in this process. So this, in turn, I would hope would make our AGMs more bearable and more having more people attend and all of those things. And this change would also place AUSA in to a position where each time they have a student council, they really need to ensure that it's well attended. So it gives them an incentive to, show to the other universities and to our own university that the views held by student council are actually representative of the wider university. And that would be the point of this new, bylaw change, so that everybody could have a say if they want to.
Okay, bro, thank you. Any more questions for Andre or speeches against this bylaw amendment? If not, we can move to a vote. Okay, Anthony?
Can I speak against the motion, please?
Yes, you can.
Thanks. Anthony, Vice Chair of the Communities Committee. I'm going to be voting against this motion today because I think that if we want to increase participation in student council, this isn't necessarily the best way to go about it. As an alternative, I'd suggest maybe lowering the number of people that are on student council, just so that there's actually a bit of a fight to get onto the council. Then when people are campaigning, then they'll find out about what student council is. It'll be something a bit more exciting. If I read the bylaw correctly, it says that there will be no quorum requirement at all. So if we have a scenario where it's the last student council meeting of the semester, which rarely gets quorum, you could have a scenario where only 15 people turn up and then decide AUSA policy at that meeting. And when it comes to the referendums, campus-wide referendums, I think we've already seen in the NUS referendum, turnout was incredibly low, with less than 200 people taking part. And plus, if it was a really conscientious subject, there's no guarantee that there won't be outside influence on those referendums through advertisement on social media, whatever, because there's very little way to regulate that. So I'll be voting against. Thanks.
Okay, does anyone wish to make another speech in favour of the motion? If they do, I'll need someone else to make a speech against the motion, or we can move to a vote. But I would need someone to propose and second that. Harnham?
I'd speak against if somebody wants to speak for.
Okay, I'd need someone to speak in favour of the bylaw amendment. Anyone wish to put their hand up? Oh. Hold on, I'm just waiting on some clarification on some things. I see Ava's hands up though. Sorry, someone from AUSA staff is typing, so I'm just waiting to see. But okay, we'll go to Ava.
I would like to speak for this motion.
For the motion. Okay. Yeah, we can go for that.
All right, I will be voting for this motion because I think that the main point of student council is to speak for the students, and it's to really make sure that the students' voice is heard. And considering most people on student council aren't actually elected by like the majority of the students, I think this is a really good way of engaging our student population without without them needing to have specific responsibilities, extra workload, because everyone in student council is also busy doing other things for their, and that's the reason why they're council members. And I don't think that would change things. I think the people who are here now would also be here if it was an open student council. And the best thing is that then there would be even more people and even more voices to be heard, and an easier way for the student voice to be heard and for the student voice to be represented, which is, after all, what we're supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ava. And then we can go to Harnham for the speech against.
Hi, Harnham, Colours and Blues convener of Sports Committee. I'm speaking against this motion because I feel that it takes away from the democracy that is student council. We are elected individuals to make decisions on the student body, and despite the fact that there's very low turnout at elections, we're still elected by those in who we represent. And then the same could be said for all sorts of elections. So I don't think that should be a valid argument. And then also, just to sort of another point I want to make is that AUSA's history of people taking part in elections has been, since as part of I've been at the university, has been very, very low. So putting these procedures in place to allow this to happen is just going to be extra work for something that I don't think we're going to need to do, because people aren't going to want to take part. So I'm voting against, and I'd urge everybody else to vote against as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Harnham. I see a hand up. I don't think it's I think it's just a legacy hand though. I can't see whose it is.
It's mine. I know it was just
Dean. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I know. It was just I would speak for the motion if it was good to go to another round of debate.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak against the bylaw amendment? No. Okay, we can move to. Thank you, though, Radine. We can move to a vote then.
Can I have a concluding speech?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the things that have been mentioned why this shouldn't pass is actually a reason why this should pass, because we have issues, as you've mentioned, and this proposal is part of the solution. So 2 years ago, we've had the whole democratic review, and the AGM very overwhelmingly voted in favor of such a proposal. Last year, around this time, Cecilia brought forward a motion that would actually lower student council, and it was voted down. So this view of the student council at the time was that lowering the amount of, core councillors and stuff like that was not really an option. So we cannot in my view, say if what we're doing doesn't work and we can go one way, then council says no. I think if a council will say no to the other thing, then that is very problematic, because then we're out of options essentially. So, and we really need to move forward to make sure that it does reflect everyone's views at the university. And over the years, most of the councillors were actually co-opted into these positions. They were not elected. And even with the elections, I think this year we've seen a higher turnout, but in previous years, there have been councillors elected with as little as 3 to 5 votes. So there's not really representative of, you know, the student body. And we're there to create change. And, you know, we're not there as councillors or enact change, and we're not there to sort of hold power as we do now. So that's why I think we should have a forum such a student council that would be open to all students.
Okay, thanks, Andre. The voting link has already been posted in the chat. We're voting on the bylaw amendment as has been outlined on student council. It's a bylaw 3 amendment. Bylaws need 75% to pass, excluding abstentions. And the vote is in the chat. I'll give you another minute or so to vote. Okay, just waiting on. Okay, just waiting on everyone to vote, so just make sure you voted. The link is in the chat. Remember, we're voting on the bylaw 3 amendment. Then we'll just need to make sure that it's hit 75% or not. Okay, so if you've not voted, the votes won't be counted now, but you may still be charged because it has been calculated, and we're just waiting to get the results up on the screen. There we go. So 21 votes for, 13 against, and 3 abstentions. So that bylaw amendment does not pass, as it needed 25 votes to pass. Okay. Does anyone have any other business they wish to raise? Not rage. No one rage. Raise. I can't speak today. Raise. Nope. Anyone wants to put their hands up? No? Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone for attending this additional session of Student Council. The next Student Council is obviously next month. More information will be posted online about when the motion deadlines are. If you've got any questions or queries, make sure to get in touch with me at sa.chair@abdn.ac.uk. And yeah, stay safe out there and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to AUSA staff as well for organising this. Thank you.
Cheers, Matthew. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Done. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to AUSA staff as well for organising this. Thank you.
Cheers, Matthew. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Done.